Thank you very much for being here. We're very happy to see you at this meeting. I'm Majid Al-Madhaji, the Executive Director of the Sana'a Center for Strategic Studies. I'm here in Marib, I came here a week ago to look into the important events that are going on in this governorate these days. When I decided to come to Marib, I did not truly know what the situation would be like on the ground. I didn't know if I would see the war everywhere, like one of my friends had told me. But when I arrived, what was remarkable to me, or the first thing that I thought, was how life seemed to continue despite the death that was on the outskirts of the city. I saw a large number of children. I saw school children going and coming back from school. I saw the markets were full. And at night I would hear the fighting and the death that was happening in the battles right outside the city. Despite that, I think Marib remains one of the most important parts of the war in Yemen. It has been one of the site of some of the most important confrontations. And ever since the 6th of February, one of the most expansive battles in the Yemeni war have been occurring, and it is one of the largest attempts to make a breakthrough into the governorate, which is the political capital of the legitimate government and is led by our dear guest today, Sheikh Sultan al-Arada, the governor. Welcome, Your Excellency, in this meeting with international journalists, with researchers, with diplomats. Welcome. Could you please tell us more about what is happening in Marib? Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the Sana'a Center. Thank you, Majid and Farah, and all of your colleagues for your efforts. I would also like to thank the attendees. Thank you for your concern for Yemen, and specifically with this governorate of which I am the governor. So thank you for your time. To be honest, Yemen has, after the coup by the armed militias, which was very different from the rest of Yemen's history. Usually coups are when one part of the state takes over from the rest of the state, but this was an armed group from outside of the state that took over the state and all of its institutions and all of the authority, anything related to the state. They took it over and destroyed much of the country by the threat of force and violence. This is the reality in Yemen as a whole. What Marib specifically is going through, has been going through a war since 2015. This war was imposed on Marib and its people when these militias starting from Saada, went through the rest of the governorates of Yemen and arrived in Marib. They imposed this war on us, and we are in a defensive war and trying not to get involved in the rest of the battles. But unfortunately, the war has now has been at the outskirts of Marib since 2015. The war started before the Arab coalition got involved, and the war continued after the intervention by the Arab coalition upon being invited to do so by the president of Yemen. We in Marib have faced many different problems and challenges. The first is that the governorate had a very limited infrastructure, had a very limited space and a limited capacity before the war. In addition to that, during the war, over the past 6 years, Marib has received IDPs from all of the different governorates of Yemen, whether these people were displaced from the areas under the control of the Houthis or IDPs internally displaced people within the governorate itself because of the battles and shelling in different districts. We have many different challenges that we have faced as the local authority, mainly the humanitarian challenge. And we also faced many security problems, and it was difficult to provide security for the ballooning population of the governorate with the increased IDPs. These people had left their homes, their jobs, everything to Marib, and we had to help provide them with assistance as well as security within the governorate by building a professional security apparatus in the Marib governorate. The second thing we need to provide were services to this very large number of IDPs, including electricity, water, healthcare, education, roads, and other services and infrastructure. And this is something that is very important for us to provide. Marib has welcomed many times more than its original population IDPs, and this means that we need educational staff, we need healthcare facilities and staff to provide the services that would accommodate these millions of people. Whether these people need treatment for illnesses or because of the increased injuries from the war. You know the importance of these basic services for the people and their needs, and these were the challenges that the local authority in the Marib governorate faced and continues to face. We would like to thank the government, the federal government, and the political leadership for supporting the local authorities, as well as the Arab coalition and international organizations for supporting us, even if that support has been limited. So that was a quick background of the state of the local authorities. The war has been imposed on Marib, and many people have been killed throughout the war, whether they were soldiers or civilians. The governorate has been under a hailstorm of shelling and missile attacks, with ballistic missile attacks targeting residential areas, as well as terrorist attacks and IEDs in the main roads and markets. This has led to many casualties among civilians, among women and children, among the elderly, because of these actions. And the governorate has had to face off against these unjust attacks on the people, unjust attacks on their attempts to survive after having been displaced from the rest of the country to Marib, and attacks against the last remaining vestiges of sovereignty of the government. Our society fortunately supported the authorities in accommodating the IDPs and in defending against these attacks. I don't want to take too long in describing the suffering and the implications of this war. I would like to give you an opportunity now to ask any questions you would like to ask. Sheikh Sultan, could you please tell us mainly about these most recent military operations? What is the state of the military front lines in Marib? We know that there is a very wide-ranging attack. Is there any fear of Marib falling to the Houthis by the local authorities? I will talk about the war from two aspects. With regards to the good news, I think Marib is in a good state, and I don't think that it will fall by force. But unfortunately, this attack, these assaults have their implications on the people. These battles have a direct impact both on the humanitarian situation and all aspects of the humanitarian situation. And I think one of the biggest problems that Yemenis face is the lack of stability and the value of the local currency, which affects their livelihood and ability to provide for the basic goods that they need. And there are obviously other impacts, humanitarian impacts of the war. And to keep it brief, like I said, there's two parts. The good news, I think Marib will remain steadfast. Marib will remain hospitable to all of the people who have been displaced to it. It will maintain the republican system of Yemen, and it will maintain the state. On the other hand, we are facing this very arbitrary, indiscriminate, and unjust war that is impacting all of the civilians and people living in Marib in any way that you could imagine. It affects all aspects of their daily lives. The war was started on three different front lines: with the borders with the Sana'a governorate, with the borders with the Jof governorate, and the borders with the Al Bayda governorate. The advances have stopped in a number of the wars in the west coast, in Ta'iz, in Dala, and Al Bayda, or the battles that are ongoing in different areas of the country in Al Jof and Saada, have stopped, which has affected the intensity of the assault on Marib, with all of these forces of the militias trying to advance and make a breakthrough into Marib and imposing this very wide-ranging war. But the National Army of Yemen, supported by the tribes of Marib and other Yemeni tribes who have come into the Marib, as well as the security forces of Marib, are defending the governorate against these vicious attacks. If I could just give you a quick idea on the number of people who have been killed in these battles from the latest figures that we have, just the soldiers who have been killed during these most recent assaults, there are tens of thousands who have died and tens of thousands who have been injured during the war, starting in from January 2020 with the first assault on Marib until this moment. When did this battle start? This assault on Marib? Do you know? Sheikh Sultan, are these the casualties from both sides? Do you have any estimates on the casualties on both sides of this battle? I think that the number, the figures that we have are between 17 to 18,000 soldiers from the National Army who have been killed during these most recent battles from the beginning of 2020 until now. So throughout this last year, yeah, just this past year. I'm not talking about any other period. And I think I would think around 40,000 are people who were injured or left disabled by their injuries during this battle. Sheikh Sultan, what is the nature of the coalition's support to the local authorities? We see that there are ballistic missiles attacks by the Houthis on Marib city in last year and this period, and there have been a number of attempts on your life with these attacks. Why isn't there an air defense system to protect the Marib governorate, and how does the coalition's air force support your efforts? The coalition is supporting the National Army of Yemen with the air support that it provides to the coalition air force, as well as logistical support. But the anti-aircraft weapons, or the Patriot missile defense system that was in Marib, is no longer in Marib. So there is no missile defense or any air defense system in Marib. Do you think that the coalition's air force operations are making a difference in the battle on the ground? Does the coalition and its air force provide vital support to your operations? Yes, there's no doubt about that, because there is, when you compare the equipment and the military capacity on both sides, there is no comparison. The Houthis have the arms of the former Yemeni state and the Yemeni military, in addition to the support that it gets from external actors like Iran. Without the support of the Air Force, the situation would have been much different. The Houthis are trying as hard as possible to stop the airstrikes with any kind of local or international pressure that they can put on the coalition, because they would like to not have to worry about the airstrikes and for them to be able to use their heavy weaponry and vehicles and tanks to advance on Marib. But the airstrikes have helped to protect Marib, protect civilians in Marib, and protect the areas under the control of the legitimate government. Sheikh Sultan, what is the state of some of the IDP camps? I was in Marib and I saw that some of these camps, these IDP camps, the people within these camps had to leave them because of the advance by the Houthis. The threat to the IDP camps by the missile strikes, the most recent missile strike was today. A large ballistic missile was shot and struck next to some of the IDP camps in rural areas in the Marib al-Wadi district. Do you have any estimates on the number of IDPs who have been displaced once again during this most recent assault? There are more than 2 million people who have been displaced to the Marib governorate throughout the war. The estimates put the figure of IDPs a little over 2.3 million IDPs that have come into Marib throughout the war. Do you think that why do you think the Houthis have escalated their assaults? Have escalated their assault on Marib recently? Is this in any way linked to the new American administration? This is a question from El Pas. I think that the Houthis are trying to show the world that they're in control of all of Yemen, and that there are only very limited areas that they do not control, and that they will be able to take control of these soon. This is what the Houthi media is trying to say. They are benefiting from some positions within the international community, especially when peace is talked about, and it's misunderstood. Whenever the Houthis talk about peace with the international community, they intensify their attacks. They're taking advantage of this opportunity. The Houthis believe, especially with the new American position on not designating the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. This seems to have encouraged them. Unfortunately, this designation was repealed by the new American administration. And I think this is a very simplistic way of looking at the situation. Regardless of American internal politics, I think that it is true that the Houthis are a terrorist organization. They have destroyed state institutions, they've destroyed places of worship, they have killed civilians, they've destroyed schools, they have destroyed much of the infrastructure of the country. They have made things much worse for the Yemeni people. And I think that is a very clear definition of terrorism. We had hoped that the American administration would make a more well thought out decision that would help ensure progress in the situation or in the peace process in Yemen. And I think the Houthis have benefited from some of these developments on the international stage. Has Safir's production of gas been affected by the most recent battles? No. Safir is continuing in its production at the same levels as before and has not been affected. The Safir LNG facilities in Marib. I'm very sorry, Sheikh Sultan. I just wanted to talk about this issue, if you'd allow me, the issue of Safir. Safir provides cooking gas for all of Yemen. And since the beginning of the war in 2015 and until this moment, we have distributed this cooking gas to all parts of Yemen, including the area of Marran, where the Houthis are originally from, providing the same quantity that was allocated for each district, for each area, for each village, and for each governorate before the war started. We have treated the Yemeni people equally in the distribution of this cooking gas, and we sell this cooking gas at the official rates. But unfortunately, in the areas under the control of the Houthis, they raise the prices, and it has gone up to 6 or 7 times the value that we are selling these gas canisters, and they use this income to support the war effort and to enrich the leaders of the Houthi militias.
سؤال يا شيخ سلطان.
There's another question, Sheikh Sultan. From Luis, yes, go ahead. From Luis, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Humbert from Le Monde, nice to see you again. I'll ask a few questions. If you have answered some of them before, ignore them. Basically, what I would like to know what do you think? Can the Houthis take the city of Marib, or do you think they want to settle there inside as close as they can and then negotiate with the Saudis? 2, have people been leaving the city, especially IDPs? And can you please tell me how are the tribes behaving? And Qaeda, have they joined the fight? Also, last question, Emirati Patriot missiles, are they gone? Oh, and does the army pay salaries?
شكرا.
Thank you. Majid said one question at a time, please. But you're a friend of Marib Luis and a friend of mine as well. It's nice to see you again. And we hope that you can visit us once again. In answer to your questions,
أطمئنك على مأرب.
Marib will not. For the first question, Marib did not give up when it was fighting on its own, and now Marib has the support of the Yemeni people, the coalition, and the international resolutions. Marib will continue to maintain the institutions of the state and the legitimacy of the state, and so I don't think there's any need to worry. The second question about. Sorry, what was the second part? What was the second question, Luis? About the removal of the Patriots, Emirati Patriot defense missile defense system. When our brothers in the UAE withdrew from the war, they took the Patriot defense system with them, and we no longer have any missile defense system. With regards to the IDPs, I think they're living somewhat normal lives in Marib city, and I don't think that they're thinking of leaving the Marib governorate. The last part of the question with regards to the participation of the tribes. As for Al-Qaeda, no, there is no participation. And this is one of the lies that the Houthis are trying to use to justify their assault. They try to show themselves and use the rhetoric to win over the support of the international community because of the hatred that any normal person will have towards these terrorist groups. And they say that the Houthis try to say that Al-Qaeda is what is fighting them. But this is absolutely not true. The tribes are supporting the national army on every step of the way based on the military strategies and plans of the Yemeni National Army. Sorry, as for the salaries, as for the last part of the question, sorry, about the salaries. With regards to the payment of salaries, salaries are being paid, but unfortunately not as regularly as they should. There are delays with the payment of salaries, sometimes for months, but and they are paid. And this obviously has a negative impact on the morale and performance of these military units.
خليني أسألك يا شيخ سلطان هناك سؤال.
Thank you, Sheikh Sultan. I have another question from to what extent do you think
كرر.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Majid? To what extent do you think that Biden's support on Saudi Arabia has led to weakening the coalition militarily in Yemen? There is no doubt that there are increased pressures on the countries of the members of the Arab coalition, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But there are international UNSC resolutions that require the more integrity from the countries that are sponsoring these resolutions. The United States of America must stand with these UNSC resolutions and must not abandon them. Resolution 2216 and resolutions that came after it do not allow for the United States or any other country to just abandon them and try to implement other kinds of decisions or anything other than these UNSC resolutions.
طب هناك سؤال أيضا.
There's another question from the Guardian. Do you get any political support from the office of the UN Special Envoy taking into account this ongoing assault in Marib? The situation is similar to what was happening in Hodeidah, and Marib needs a Stockholm agreement. What do you think could convince the Houthis to stop their assault on Marib? With regards to the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Martin Griffiths, he visited us in Marib. Can you hear me?
نعم.
زارنا إلى مأرب.
He visited us in Marib and he saw up close the situation, and we have kept in touch since then. And I think he's always been very positive regarding Marib because of what he saw on the ground during his visit. And all we have seen from Mr. Griffiths is his support and him taking into account what the governorate and its population has been through. The second question about... Sorry, what was the second part of that question, Majid? What do you think... What could convince the Houthis to stop their assault in Marib? What do you think are the concessions that could be given to them to stop the assault? This is a question from a journalist from The Guardian. For us, we have made all concessions, not to the Houthis as a terrorist organization, but for the Yemeni people. We provide the cooking gas that the Yemenis need. We provide a lot of the goods, fuel that are consumed by the Yemeni people. We have accommodated many IDPs who have escaped Houthi-controlled areas, and the legitimate government is always the one being asked to make concessions. But the question should be, what are the concessions that the Houthis have made when they claim to try to sue for peace? When the Houthis talk about peace, the only thing we see after their spokesperson talks about peace is further ballistic missile attacks on markets, attacks on residential areas, attacks on villages and IDP camps. And this is what the rest of the world must know. This is what the rest of the world needs to take into account when addressing the Houthis. I don't think there can be a peace in Yemen unless there is consensus on implementing UNSC resolutions without veering off of that path. Without that, I doubt there will be peace. Just as a reminder to the participants, you could submit your questions in the chat box or raise your hand. Sheikh Sultan, there's a question from Hannah Klager. She says, have there been any attempts by the UN to help broker ceasefire and end to this assault in Marib? I think that everyone working on the peace process, anyone who has any shred of humanity or is trying to help the people, they're trying to find peace. We are also keen to have a peace or to end the assault, because I think this is the only way for us to build stability, to stop the bloodshed, and create security for the people. This is the situation that we want to live in. And what is unfortunate, however, is that the other side does not believe in these principles. They believe in violence, they believe in the use of arms and missiles, and they believe that peace is what they can achieve through these means. I call upon all of you, I call upon all of the participants who are here from different organizations to carry the message of Yemen to the rest of the world. We want the world to know what is happening in Yemen. Yemenis are suffering from this militia that is taken over by violence. This is a terrorist organization that does not care about any bloodshed or any violence that it uses against the Yemeni people. They have blown up homes with the residents still inside. Why doesn't the world view it this way? I call upon you and through you the rest of the world for the world to look at Yemen in a more objective manner, to use the actual reports of what is going on in the ground. Anyone who is able to visit Yemen, we will welcome them with open arms to show them what is actually happening here, and we will provide for their security. But for the victim to be asked to make the concessions, sorry, Sheikh Sultan, but has the UN and the Special Envoy's office, have they had any efforts to try to stop this assault on Marib? There is no doubt that the Special Envoy is doing everything that they can, and they want to succeed in these efforts, but they have reached a dead end. And Mr. Griffiths has talked to me and said this directly to me. He's talked to the rest of the government and the political leadership within the government about this. Every time they go to the other side, they find that they are delaying and trying to postpone any discussions. And this is the situation that we have been. I think whenever Martin Griffiths writes his memoirs, he'll mention all of this. Sheikh Sultan, we have Shada from the French press agency. Her question is, if Marib falls, is this considered, is this a defeat for the coalition? The second question, do you think that the leadership of the battle is controlled by the Iranian ambassador in Sana'a, or is it still being controlled by the Houthis? I'll start with the last question. It's funny to hear a terrorist organization talking about terrorism. Aren't these actions destroying people's livelihoods and killing them, fighting everything that was beautiful in our country? This is what the Houthis have done, and they throw around accusations of terrorism. All of these claims are false. We are all at the end Yemenis. We are the people of this country that has a long history, and we are a part of a state that is the Republic of Yemen, that is governed by the constitution and the laws of Yemen. We can only continue working together with anyone around the world who shares this vision of building our countries and supporting each other against this kind of evil. This is a minority. This is a very small group who just wants to control the rest of Yemen. I don't know this group of people, these militias. They claim to have a God-given right to govern and to rule Yemen. This is something that's only happened in medieval times, when people thought that they had a God-given right for a small group of people to oppress and rule everyone else. I hope that everyone who is here, I want them to read about the history of Yemen and the history of this group. There are many different writers from the region and also from the international community who have written at length about this group, the Houthis, and the background that they have. So as a response, first of all, to the first question, Marib, they will not be able to, by God's will, to take control of Marib. But obviously there will be damages to the government, but they will not be able to take Marib. And also with regards to the issue of the defeat of the coalition, it's not a defeat to the Republic of Yemen and to the coalition. If Marib falls, it'll be a defeat, I think, for the rest of the world in general. I think that this will be a loss to all of humanity if Marib would fall to this group. Sheda's last question was, do you believe that the command of the military operations is under the control of the Iranian ambassador in Sana'a, or does it still remain under the control of the Houthis? I think the answer is clear to all of us. I think the international community recognizes what it means when Hassan Irlu arrived in Sana'a, the Iranian appointed ambassador. He is a man with a military background. Has a long history in the Iranian armed forces, and he came to Yemen not for diplomatic or political work. He came to plan and command these military operations. There are also other elements of the Iran military in Yemen who participate in building capacity of the Houthis that has enabled the Houthis to target the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the parts of Yemen that are under the control of the legitimate government. I think this is very clear. I don't think it's hidden from anyone. I hope that you all can understand the reality that we are living through and the situation that we're in, and we hope that people don't believe these fake claims. Sheikh Sultan, is there any support? Is there sufficient support from international organizations? From humanitarian organizations to the local authorities? We have a lot of organizations operating like the IOM, UNICEF, and a number of other international organizations, regional international organizations, as well as local organizations that have played a very positive role and have done all they can. They're not going to ever provide the same services and sustainable development that the state can do, but they are really providing the local authorities with support and helping out, and we thank them for that.
تسمعني؟ طيب هناك ايوه اسمعك سؤال. ايوه نعم سمعته. سؤال.
There's another question. Have you gotten a letter from the Yemeni Women's Pact on a woman's plan for their plan for a ceasefire and for the distribution of aid and relief supplies? Have you gotten this letter from them, and has your office taken any steps with regards? No, I have not. I haven't gotten any letter from them. Sorry, Majid. It's a local organization, right? The Yemeni Women's Pact for Peace and Security. There were Yemeni female activists that they did not send an official letter, but there are always a lot of women activists who are always striving for peace and trying to help. But the problem is, who do we work for peace with? If the other side believed in peace even a little bit, I promise we could reach a peaceful solution with them. There's a question from Andrea. It is, what is your view on the new government that was formed in December? And what support do you, as the local authorities, expect from this government? This government, I believe, is a qualified government, and the Prime Minister is known for his integrity and for working very hard to try to find a solution for Yemen and overcome many of the deficiencies and failures that were committed in the past. And there is an elite group of ministers also that we have a lot of hope in. But there are still many challenges that the government is facing, and we hope that we pray that they are able to overcome these challenges. One of the biggest challenges is to provide security in the interim capital, Aden, and to give this government an opportunity to play the role that it needs to play for Yemenis. What has happened to the displaced people who have come from other places? What will happen to them because of the Houthi advances, because of the Houthi pressure on these IDP camps? Will these people have to go to other governorates? Will they go to Shabwa or Mahara? Are there other governorates that have the infrastructure, the ability to welcome these IDPs? I think for the IDPs in Marib, I think they're between a rock and a hard place. There's nowhere for them to go. The Houthis are advancing and there's nowhere else for them to go. But I don't think anything bad will happen to these people, but this is the reality that they're living in. There's nowhere left for them to go. Thank you, Sheikh Sultan. We have, if there are any other questions, I think I'll take one or two additional questions. And our hour is almost up. There's a question from Nick from Field, and he says, what support has been provided by Tariq Saleh's forces for the fighting in Marib? Are there any forces that were deployed from the coast to Marib? They have promised to send a brigade or two, and we hope that they will arrive from there. We are in contact with our colleagues on the west coast, and I think that they understand the situation that they are in, and they feel our pain, and for this attack to be carried out on Marib and with them just watching. But if all of the front lines if the fighting starts in the front lines in Dala and Ta'ez, they're continuing, and hopefully at the west coast, the Stockholm Agreement did not play a role in actually ending the fighting, and it did not allow the legitimate government to regain control of this vital city and port in Yemen. There's a question from Jacob. He said, is there any presence of Saudi forces in Marib? There are no Saudi forces in Marib. There are a few officers helping us with logistical issues, but nothing more than that. All of the forces in the fight are Yemeni. There's a question from Inas Al-Arashi. Is there a problem with the Yemeni forces within Marib? Is there competition between the Islah Party and the GPC, and is this a weak point for the military? The political partisanship was something that we had in Sana'a before the Houthis arrived, and it led us to the situation that they are in, and it is now something that we see in other places. We see this competition in Riyadh and Cairo and Amman and Abu Dhabi, this competition between the various political parties in Turkey as well and in the West. But in Marib and inside Yemen, I think that we have been able to overcome this problem. We are all focusing on the national issues and trying to maintain the Republic of Yemen and the dignity of the Yemeni people. I believe that any political party competition at this stage is not something that any sane person would participate in. Anyone who thinks of political party competition at this time would be absolutely an insane person, and this is the message that we have had here in Marib. Sheikh Sultan, is there anything else you would like to add? Are there any messages that you would like to send to the international community? What is your closing statement or remarks on? Just very, very, very briefly, I hope that the international community can implement the UNSC resolutions and not to believe any of these fake reports or justifications that the militias are using for their war on Yemen. Thank you very much, Sheikh Sultan. Thank you for accepting our invitation from Sana'a Center and for talking to this group of people concerned with the situation in Yemen, specifically in Marib. Thank you for your time. We know how busy you are and how little time you have, especially in this very difficult stage